The extensive network of national highways became an ideal hunting ground for a disturbed predator. He targeted unsuspecting hitchhikers along the roads, subjecting them to captivity, torture, and sexual assault. Unsatisfied with these horrifying acts, he escalated to murder. This is the chilling story of a trucker whose nomadic existence along the nation's interstates became a macabre hunting ground. As we delve into the disturbing details, we uncover a pattern of depravity, kidnapping, and unspeakable violence. Join us here on Crime Scene Archives as we journey into the twisted mind of a predator whose actions would leave an indelible mark on the lives of those he targeted. Dare to dive into the darkness? Hit subscribe and join our descent into the chilling abyss of true crime. The shadows hold secrets, and we're here to unveil them. Warning: this video contains graphic content related to crime scenes. It is intended for educational purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised. Across the nation, a serial rapist focused on victimizing women, and it was only a matter of time before his dark desires spiraled out of control, leading him to commit murders. He followed a seemingly random path, making it nearly impossible to trace, with his connection to the crimes being his access to the highways and a peculiar sexual fetish. As investigators believed the suspect had committed numerous murders, the FBI was determined to halt his nationwide spree. On February 5, 1990, in Houston, Texas, 18-year-old Nicole Tuttle desperately tried to flag down passing motorists. Finally, someone stopped for the bruised and bleeding girl, taking her to the nearest phone to call the police. At the Houston police station, Nicole recounted her harrowing experience. Kidnapped a week earlier in California, she fell asleep in a trucker's cab, only to wake up to a nightmare. Chained, tortured, and raped for 6 days, her ordeal continued even in the trucker's Houston apartment. She managed to escape and sought help from the police. On the same day Nicole escaped, another young woman, 14-year-old Regina K. Walters, was hitchhiking just 15 miles away in Pasadena, Texas. Running away with her new boyfriend, she had left her mother's house, prompting a missing person report. Regina's mother, Carolyn Walters, expressed her concern to Pasadena police, providing a description of her daughter. Detective Suzanne Jackson took on the case, alarmed by the absence of Regina's usual calls home. As days passed, the worry grew, and Carolyn received a call from someone who had seen Regina talking to 2 young men named Billy and Ricky, with Billy's girlfriend having the unique name of Uranus. Following these leads, the police discovered an apartment rented by Billy Wayne Gibbs. Detective Jackson, seeking Gibbs in connection with Regina's disappearance, was surprised to learn that Gibbs had a girlfriend named Uranus Sweet and a friend named Ricky Lee Jones. The trio was wanted in connection with an auto theft, leading police to dispatch units to Gibbs' apartment, awaiting his return. Officers conducted patrols along the nearby road, and after several hours of surveillance, they apprehended 17-year-old Gibbs and his girlfriend Urena near his apartment. The young couple was handcuffed and taken to the police station for questioning, while the third suspect, Ricky Lee Jones, remained at large. During the interrogation, the arresting officer inquired if Gibbs had seen Regina or Ricky Lee Jones. Gibbs claimed to have spoken to them 4 days earlier, but not since. He shared with the police that Ricky and Regina were in love, planning to run away to Mexico, where Ricky had relatives. Detectives suspected that 18-year-old Jones had additional reasons for leaving town, as being caught with Regina could lead to charges of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, given Regina's age. The detectives learned that Ricky Lee Jones was already on probation for theft, and fleeing jurisdiction constituted a parole violation. A warrant for his arrest was issued, and Regina's description was entered into the National Crime Information Center to notify police nationwide if she were located. With no known address or vehicle for the pair, locating them proved challenging for the police. In Houston, police interviewed Jerry Walters, Regina's divorced father, who had received a disturbing call on March 17th. The caller mentioned knowing Regina's location and informed Walters that her hair had been cut. When asked if she was alive or dead, the caller hung up. Detective Jackson requested Southwestern Bell to trace the call, but it would take several days. In the meantime, the trail of the missing 14-year-old and her boyfriend went cold. In March 1990, Detective Suzanne Jackson continued her search for Regina Walters. The only lead was an anonymous call to Regina's father on March 17th, which remained untraced. On the same night, Regina's mother received a call instructing her to meet someone at a local convenience store for information about Regina. Despite police advice against it, Carolyn insisted on going, with officers providing protection from a distance. Carolyn waited for over 2 hours, but the caller never showed up. 2 days later, the police traced the call to a nearby payphone, but the caller had already fled. On April 23, a partial skeleton of a small female was found near a riverbank in Pasadena, Texas. While initially suspected to be Regina, dental records proved otherwise. Months passed with no leads, and Regina's parents feared the worst. On October 12th, human remains were found near a dirt road in Manville, Texas, and an autopsy was hoped to provide more information. The body's identification and matching dental records revealed it was not Regina, offering some relief to her parents. As the search continued in Texas, a decayed body was discovered in the hayloft of an abandoned barn in Bond County, Illinois, in October 1990. Detective Jackson was still hunting for Regina in Texas, and this new development added another layer of complexity to the unfolding investigation. Crime scene technicians meticulously searched the barn where the body was discovered. No clothes were found on or near the victim, and there was no wallet or other identification. However, a single white thread, seemingly too new for the old barn, was found close to the bones. Police photographed the remains from various angles and identified baling wire matching the wire wrapped around the victim's neck. Some hair remained on the head, leading police to believe that the victim was likely a child due to the small size of the skull. The anonymity of the crime was particularly disturbing for the people of nearby Greenville, who hadn't seen a murder in 10 years. Authorities were unsure if the victim was local or dumped there by someone passing through on nearby Interstate 70. Initially, they couldn't determine the age or sex of the corpse. Forensic anthropologist Mark Johnsey conducted an examination, determining that the victim was a young female between 14 to 16 years old, with an approximate weight of 90 to 110 pounds. There were signs that her hair had been recently cut. The cause of death was strangulation, with the killer using baling wire twisted around the victim's neck 16 times. Johnsey estimated that the girl had been killed almost a year before. A forensic scientist analyzed a white fiber found near the body, identifying it as mostly cotton, likely from a towel rather than clothing. Using the National Crime Information Center database, State Agent Mike Shealy listed to Illinois' Jane Doe as a white female, 14 to 16 years old, probably killed as early as September 1989. The task of identification was challenging, given the 950 matches in the age group and time frame. Shealy narrowed the field to about 100 by specifying a closer time frame for the victim's death, around the spring of 1990. Teletypes were sent to law enforcement agency, working on cases matching the criteria. The detective investigating Regina Walters' disappearance in Pasadena, Texas, received the teletype on October 16th and believed the body's description matched Regina's. However, the Bond County Sheriff's Office had received numerous responses and needed to call her back. The detective then recalled the mysterious phone call Regina's father had received on March 17th. When asked if the body was found in a barn, the receptionist transferred the call to the sheriff. It was soon discovered that the body might be Regina's, leading to the comparison of dental x-rays, confirming the identity. However, one question lingered. where was Regina's boyfriend Ricky Lee Jones? The FBI was brought in for assistance, assigning Special Agent Mark Young as the case agent. Young developed a profile of Regina's killer, suggesting that 18-year-old Ricky Lee Jones probably did not commit the crime. The controlled and purposeful nature of the crime scene indicated an older person, possibly a traveler, a truck driver, or traveling salesman. The proximity to an interstate supported this theory. As the investigation progressed, it appeared that the man who had killed Regina and her boyfriend had seemingly escaped justice. Special Agent Mark Young's profiling and the lack of leads led investigators to believe that the case might remain unsolved. As the hunt for the sadistic killer in Pasadena, Texas reached an impasse, authorities faced a new challenge 1,000 miles away in Arizona. An Arizona highway patrolman, Officer Michael Miller, discovered a tractor-trailer parked on an interstate on-ramp. Recognizing it as a hazard, he approached the driver, Robert Ben Rhodes, who emerged from the cab with arms spread, claiming everything was fine. However, Miller heard screams from inside the truck. Miller handcuffed Rhodes, escorted him back to the patrol car, and returned to the truck to find a woman, Kathleen Vine, handcuffed to the wall by her wrists and ankles. He assured her that help was on the way, preventing Rhodes from causing further harm. Casa Grande Police Detective Rick Barnhart led the investigation, discovering a horrifying collection of torture tools inside Rhodes' truck, including chains, fishhooks, a horse whip, and a briefcase filled with implements of a sexual sadist. A camera and hairs not belonging to Kathleen were also found. Kathleen, who had been assaulted and chained by Rhodes, agreed to press assault and kidnapping charges. Detective Barnhart faced challenges during his interview with Kathleen, as she exhibited signs of paranoid delusions, weaving in stories about traveling to see the president. Nonetheless, he believed her account and pressed charges against Rhodes. The detective also learned about Rhodes' previous encounter with law enforcement in Houston, where he was suspected of holding a woman captive for 6 days. Houston Police Sergeant Bumar contacted Detective Barnhart, describing the earlier case where Rhodes was suspected of raping and torturing a woman who managed to escape. Although charges couldn't be pressed due to the victim's inability to identify Rhodes, suspicions of him being a serial rapist and potential murderer grew. Detective Barnhart, unable to build a solid case on his own, sought assistance from the FBI. Special Agent Bob Lee of the Houston FBI field office joined the investigation. The focus shifted to Rhodes' Houston apartment, where they hoped to find evidence linking him to a pattern of serial sex crimes. The search of Robert Ben Rhodes' apartment provided crucial evidence for investigators. Rhodes' landlord, who had checked the apartment after his arrest, reported finding bloody torture devices. This information, combined with the landlord's statement, enabled Agent Bob Lee to secure a warrant to search Rhodes' residence. Upon entering the apartment, investigators discovered bondage paraphernalia, chains, handcuffs, and a rack of restraining individuals. Additionally, they found women's jewelry, bloody white towels, women's clothing, and stacks of photographs depicting women with shorn hair, bound, bruised, and in various states of undress. The photographs were believed to be souvenirs of Rhodes' crimes, allowing him to relieve the terror he inflicted on his victims. Although agents found concrete evidence that Rhodes was likely a serial rapist, identifying the victims from the photos proved challenging. Despite the disturbing nature of the evidence, the lack of additional witnesses, and the questionable credibility of the only witness, Kathleen Vine, posed difficulties for prosecutors. By December 1990, Arizona prosecutors offered Rhodes a deal, 6 years, including time served and work release eligibility, if he pleaded guilty to charges related to Kathleen Vine. Rhodes accepted the plea deal, raising concerns that he could be released within a year, potentially continuing his predatory behavior. In October 1991, a year after the discovery of 14-year-old Regina K. Walters' murder in Illinois, the case remained unsolved. FBI profiler Special Agent Mark Young continued his efforts, spreading information about the case to area law enforcement agencies and hoping to find matches with the killer's profile. Special Agent Bob Lee overheard a conversation about Rhodes during a phone call with a police officer and shared information about a case he had worked on months earlier. The case involved a truck driver who kidnapped a young girl named Nicole Tuttle, whose head hair was cut. On February 5, 1990, the same day Regina Walters and Ricky Lee Jones were last seen alive, Houston police had stopped a trucker named Robert Ben Rhodes, matching Nicole's description. Initially, Nicole had told officers that Rhodes was the wrong man, but later, in the hospital, she identified him as her kidnapper. Detective Bob Lee informed Agent Young that Nicole was not Rhodes' only victim and that he had photographs depicting him with other victims. Upon examining the photos, Agent Young believed one of the victims was Regina Walters. To confirm this, he obtained pictures from the Walters family, and the facial characteristics and markings in Rhodes' photos perfectly matched those of Regina. With this new evidence, the FBI began building a case against Robert Ben Rhodes for kidnapping and murder. They found more photos of Regina, as well as several articles of women's clothing, including a black dress worn by Regina in the pictures. Illinois State Agent Mike Shealy was notified of the developments and forwarded evidence from the Greenville barn to the FBI lab in Houston. Lab examiners discovered that the cotton fiber recovered in Illinois matched the bloody towels found in Rhodes' apartment. However, the results were inconclusive due to the commonality of that type of towel. Facing the imminent release of Rhodes on parole, investigators raced against time to secure indictments against him for Regina Walters' murder and crimes against his other unidentified victims. Rhodes' parole eligibility and work release status added pressure to expedite the arrest and prevent further harm. The investigation into Robert Ben Rhodes continued as agents interviewed his former employer, Mike Eggleton. Eggleton revealed that local police had questioned Rhodes a few years back regarding a suspected assault on a woman in his truck, but no charges were filed at the time. Despite selling the truck Rhodes had driven, Eggleton provided its vehicle identification number, as well as Rhodes' trucking logs and fuel receipts. While waiting for trace on the truck's ID number, agents began assembling a timeline of Rhodes' travels. Fuel receipts from a gas station in Anna, Texas, dated March 17, 1990, coincided with the same place and date as the call made to Regina's father, Jerry Walters, and several calls to Regina's mother, Carolyn, aligned with Rhodes' time in Houston. The investigators faced a crucial question regarding the calls. How had Rhodes obtained Jerry Walters' unlisted home number? The answer was found in evidence stored in Arizona, a spiral notebook that belonged to Regina Walters. Inside the notebook, agents discovered Regina's personal information, including her parents' addresses and phone numbers. More disturbingly, a message believed to be written by Rhodes himself was found in the notebook, with a drawing of a knife and gun above a phrase that seemed to have blood dripping off its letters, reading, "Ricky's a dead man." To confirm if the partial remains found in Southeast Texas belonged to Ricky Lee Jones, a DNA test was required. Unfortunately, investigators lacked a known source of Jones' DNA for comparison. Rhodes claimed to have been abducting and torturing victims for the past 15 years, prompting investigators to submit their timeline to VCAP, the Violent Crime Apprehension Program. Despite gaps in the timeline and limited information, VCAP returned over 50 possible matches with open homicide and missing persons case. Investigators tracked down Rhodes' truck in Houston 2 years after he had driven it. Although the cab had been steam cleaned, repainted, and used by other drivers, evidence of his crimes survived. A single strand of head hair consistent with Regina's and a small fingerprint on the vinyl upholstery in the sleeper compartment, matching her prints, were discovered. By January 1992, almost 2 years after Regina's disappearance, investigators deemed the evidence insufficient to prove interstate kidnapping. With Rhodes' parole hearing approaching, they convinced the Bond County prosecutor to press charges in Illinois for capital murder. In February 1992, investigators served the warrant to Rhodes in the Arizona State Prison, hoping to prompt a confession with photos of Regina. However, Rhodes remained uncooperative, denying any involvement in Regina's death. Facing weak evidence, investigators suspected Rhodes was betting he could beat the charges due to his arrogance and lack of belief that they cared enough about his victims to secure a conviction. In September, almost 2 years after Regina's death, Rhodes was extradited to Illinois to stand trial. His attorney pleaded down the capital murder charge, and Rhodes accepted an offer of first-degree murder, receiving a life sentence without the possibility of a parole. Despite the conviction, investigators have not abandoned the case, continuing to gather evidence and work on identifying other potential victims from Rhodes' past in the hope of bringing closure to the families. Thank you for joining us on this gripping journey into the investigation of Robert Ben Rhodes, a sadistic killer who preyed on unsuspecting victims. If you found this case intriguing, we invite you to explore our previous video about the Kimberly Killer, another chilling true crime story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Make sure to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest true crime content. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you more stories that shed light on the dark corners of criminal investigations. Until next time, stay vigilant and remember to join us for more riveting tales from the world of true crime.